Hi, my name is Yura, and I want to talk about TypeScript. Uh, what is TypeScript? TypeScript is a strongly typed programming language that builds on JavaScript, giving you better tooling at any scale. Uh, what is TypeScript? TypeScript adds additional syntax to JavaScript to support a tight integration with your editor. Catch errors early in your editors. TypeScript code converts to JavaScript, which runs anywhere JavaScript runs, in the browsers, on Node.js, Odena, and in your apps. TypeScript understands JavaScript and uses type inference to give you great tooling without additional code. Next slide. How to use TypeScript. TypeScript code is written in a file with TS extension and then compiled into JavaScript using the TypeScript compiler. A TypeScript file can be written in any code editor. A TypeScript compiler needs to be installed on your platform. Next. Install TypeScript. There are three ways to install TypeScript. As npm package, as NuGet package, as plugin in your integrated development environment. Next slide. TypeScript variable. TypeScript follows the same rules as JavaScript for variable declaration. Variables can be declared using var, let, and const. TypeScript data types number. Just like JavaScript, TypeScript supported number data types. All numbers are stored as floating point numbers. These numbers can be decimal, hexadecimal, or octal. Next slide. TypeScript string. String is another primitive data type that is used to store text data. String values are surrounded by single quotation marks or double quotation marks. Next slide. TypeScript data type Boolean. Boolean values are supported by both JavaScript and TypeScript and stored as true-false values. Next, TypeScript arrays. An array is a special type of data type which can store multiple values of different data types sequentially using a special syntax. Next slide. TypeScript tuples. TypeScript introduced a new data type called tuple. Tuple can contain two values of different data types. Consider the following example of number, string, and tuple type variables. Next slide. TypeScript data type enums. Enums or enumerations are a new data type supported in TypeScript. Most object-oriented languages like Java and C# use enums. This is now available in TypeScript too. In simple words, enums allows us to declare a set of named contains collection of related values that can be numeric or string values. There are three types of enums: numeric, string, and heterogeneous. Next slide. TypeScript union. TypeScript allows us to use more than one data type for a variable or a function parameter. This is called union type. Next slide. TypeScript data type any. TypeScript has type checking and compile time checks. However, we do not always have prior knowledge about the type of some variables, especially when they are user-entered values from third-party libraries. In such cases, we need a provision that can deal with the dynamic content. The any types comes in handy here. Next slide. TypeScript data type void. Similar to languages like Java, Void is used where there is no data. For example, if a function does not return any value, then you can specify void as return type. Next, TypeScript data type never. TypeScript introduced a new type never, which indicates the values that will never occur. The never type is used when you are sure that something is never going to occur. TypeScript functions. Functions are primary blocks of any programs. In JavaScript, functions are the most important part since the JavaScript is a functional programming language. With function, you can implement, mimic the concepts of object-oriented programming with classes, object, polymorphism, and abstraction. In TypeScript, function can be of two types, named and anonymous. It's named functions and anonymous functions. Named function is one where you declare and call a function by its given name. And anonymous function is one which is defined as an expression. This expression is stored in a variable, so the function itself does not have a name. Next slide. TypeScript interfaces. Interface is a structure that defines the contracts in your application. It defines the syntax for classes to follow. Classes that are derived from an interface must follow the structure provided by the interface. The TypeScript compiler does not convert interfaces to JavaScript. It uses interface for type checking. This is also known as duck typing or structural subtyping. Interface as type. Interface is in TypeScript can be used by define a type and also to implement in the class. Interface as function type. TypeScript interface is also used to define a type function. This ensures the function signature. Next slide. Interface as for array type. An interface can also define the type of an array where you can define the type of index as well as values. Next, optional property. Sometimes we may declare an interface with access properties but may not accept all objects to define all the given interface properties. We can have optional properties marked with a question. In such cases, object of the interface may or may not define these properties. Next, read-only properties. TypeScript provided a way to mark a property as read-only. This means that once a property is assigned a value, it cannot be changed. Extending interfaces. Interfaces can extend one or more interfaces. This makes writing interface flexible and reusable. TypeScript data modifiers. Next slide. In object-oriented programming, the concept of encapsulation is used to make class members public or private. A class can control the visibility of its data members. This is done using access modifiers. There are three types of modifiers in TypeScript: public, private, and protected. Public by default by default members of class. Private, the private access modifier ensures that class membership are visible only to that class and are not accessible outside the containing class. And protected. The protected access modifier is similar to the private access modifier, except that protected members can be accessed using their deriving classes. Next slide. TypeScript read-only. TypeScript includes the read-only keywords that makes a property as read-only in the class, type or interface. Next slide. TypeScript static. Uh, ES6 includes static members, and so does TypeScript. The static members of a class are accessed using the class name and do not notation without creating an object. Next slide. TypeScript generics. In the section, we will learn about generics. When writing program, one of the most important aspect is to build reusable components. This ensures that the program is flexible and well or scalable in the long term. Generics offer a way to create reusable component. Generics provides a way to make components work with any data type and not restrict to one data type. So components can be called or used with a variety of data types. Multiply type variables. We can specify multiply types variables with different names as shown below. Next slide. Methods and properties of generic types. When using types variable to create generic components, TypeScript forces us to use only general methods which are available for every types. Generic constraints. As mentioned above, the generic type allows any data types. However, we can restrict it to certain types using constraints. Consider the following example. Next time. Uh, TypeScript generic interface. Here, the generic type can also be used with the interface. The following is a general interface. As you know, you can use interface as type. In the same way, generic interface can be used as type, as shown below. In the same way as you know, can use interface as function type. Generic interface can also be used as a function type. Чуть-чуть. The generic interface can also be implemented in the class, some as a non-generic interface as shown below. TypeScript, next slide, generic classes. TypeScript support generic classes. The generic type parameter is specified in angel brackets after the name of the class. A generic class can have generic fields, member variables, or methods. The generic class can also implement a generic interface. Consider the following example. Так, and this all that I want to say about TypeScript. TypeScript is an interesting and exciting language. It does everything that JavaScript does and more. It's gaining in both popularity and capability. More and more front-end developers frameworks as well as Node are supporting it. Overall, it's worth a look for your next project. Thank you for your attention. Bye.